Okay, awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for attending our webinar today. Tim is going to share some awesome information, and I know I am really excited to hear what he has to say. My name is Abby Jarvis. I am part of the team over at QGive. For any of you who aren't familiar with us, QGive is an online fundraising platform for nonprofits. We've got a whole bunch of different fundraising tools. We've got year-round donation forms, we do peer-to-peer events, we've got text giving, we've got anything you need to raise money online. We put a lot of emphasis on helping nonprofits make their donors feel like superheroes because we know that happy donors are better donors. If you want to learn how to do that, if you have thoughts or ideas about what we talk about here in the webinar, please feel free to give us a call or send us emails or tweet at us or get in touch with us however you want. Just so you know, we are recording this webinar. We will send you a copy of the webinar after it's over, and we'll also post it up on our social channels. If you want and you are active on Twitter, you can follow along with us on the hashtag QWebinar. And then while you're on there, make sure you follow us and follow the good folks over at NeonCRM as well. We are going to have a question and answer time at the end of the webinar. So there's a little chat box, and you can type any questions you have into that chat box. I will see them, and then I will ask Tim those questions for you at the end of the webinar. Well, we all know that peer-to-peer fundraising is a great way to raise money and awareness for your organization. And we know that peer-to-peer fundraising works best if you actively engage your participants and your donors. But one thing we don't often talk about in the nonprofit industry, at least right now, is how to keep those participants and donors engaged with your organization after the event is over. And that engagement after the event is over is a really important factor in making your future event successful. Luckily, Tim is here today to share some insights about how we can work on retaining donors and supporters and volunteers long after your event is over. He is part of the team over at NeonCRM, which among other things helps nonprofits manage their constituents, like the people who would be participating in your event. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Tim. Tim, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Awesome. I can.
There we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and let's just make sure from a presentation standpoint everything looked good.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Then I wanted to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Beyond the Walk, Peer-to-Peer Retention Strategies. As Abby was talking about, the wonderful folks at QGive do amazing peer-to-peer event management. So being able to manage your walks and those wonderful online forums and getting people excited about the event and badges. I can't talk enough about QGive's badges and things of that nature. But the reality is that if you don't keep those people engaged, they're not going to come back and be able to utilize those services next year that you're doing. And so what I want to talk about today in the next hour or so, leaving time for questions, of course, is how do you keep those people? How do you get them to come back? So what I want to do is unpack the basics first. Who am I? You know, why am I even vaguely appropriate to be talking about this subject? I'm going to tell you why. Then what we're going to do is dive into what is the basics of retention. I also want to have us unpack what exactly is the idea of peer-to-peer retention and how does this fit with your overall fundraising strategy. So there's some aspects when it comes to traditional fundraising and new modern techniques that I think apply not only to regular fundraising that you could use year-round, but specifically and very appropriately for peer-to-peer campaigns that you're doing. Then, of course, I'll give some takeaways that we can have and have that wonderful Q&A. But first and foremost, who am I? My name's Tim Sarrantonio, Director of Business Development here at Neon, and I have over 10 years of nonprofit fundraising experience. I've overseen both peer-to-peer campaigns as well as annual fund campaigns, raising $3 million for various causes, both in Chicago, where I used to live for over 10 years, and then I just moved to upstate New York, where I'm speaking from now, because of the lovely lady that you see in this picture here. That would be my wife, Jocelyn, and also the other lovely lady, which is my daughter, Pepper, here. So we always like to have a lot of fun. My wife does a lot of walks for breast cancer, for instance, and so being able to help out with those events and optimize those fundraising for local organizations. For instance, the Run Like an Antelope memorial fundraiser for my wife's sister who passed away in 2011, being able to help with them and have people come back year after year, that's something that's very important to me. So there's personal connection, but also professional connections. I've used a wide variety of systems. I used Razor's Edge, CiviCRM, Little Green Light, Salesforce, so a lot of different data points, but I also, of course, use NeonCRM for my own nonprofit, Reading with Pictures. It's a nonprofit that I helped co-found a few years ago, and it's a comic books and literacy nonprofit, and so we even had a little peer-to-peer campaign as well that I helped manage. So a lot of background in that, and I want to be able to share that expertise with you folks. So that's what I'm really jazzed about doing. And so first I want to talk about the idea of what exactly is retention in the first place. So it might be cut off a little bit down here if you can't see it, and of course we'll be making the slides available afterwards. But retention, what is the idea of retention? Well, at its core, retention is just making sure that people that you've acquired are coming back. It's very simple in its idea. So what we're seeing here is a really cool free tool that you can use no matter what system you're on. Again, this is going to be a very product agnostic discussion today, but I am going to be suggesting a few tools that might be very useful for you to review. The first of which is Fundraising Report Card. Very cool free product that all you do is either connect it to your existing CRM or upload a few data files, and it can actually show you things like your retention rate in an automatic way, and so they even help define that. And so one of the ways that Fundraising Report Card and other systems define it is simply people that you've acquired that you retain year to year. And so you might not think about this necessarily from your event planning standpoint, though. And that's because what I want you to do as a takeaway for today is I want you to explode the way that you even think about your events. I don't want you to do events anymore. Stop doing events. Now, I learned this from a wonderful seminar that I attended yesterday by Kathy Kingston, who's an auction presenter, and she does a lot of gala work, and she did this discussion for AFP, Association of Fundraising Professionals, and this is the advice that she gave. Stop doing events. And at first, I'm like, what are you talking about, Kathy? That sounds crazy. But what she meant was start doing philanthropy. And that's a paradigm shift. And what that means is that we treat our peer-to-peer campaigns. Now, she was speaking about large fundraising galas, but I think that this applies even more so to the way that you do peer-to-peer. Because think about how you do your peer-to-peer campaigns today. You treat them as things that happen once a year. And instead of treating it like a cyclical engagement of stewardship, it's all the effort. Think about how much effort that you're spending in terms of the logistics. You need to get the race bids. You need to get the permits for the course. You need to get the T-shirts made. All the work that you're doing in terms of that. But how much effort are you actually engaging in terms of donor cultivation, donor retention? Are you making people feel that they're part of the mission during your event? Or is it just something that you're trying to do and get crossed off to help move the needle forward? So are you leaving money on the field by just doing events? And so if we start doing philanthropy, I think that we're all going to raise a lot more money. So how are some strategies? What are some strategies to actually engage that, to first analyze that, and then to act on that? Well, what we're going to do is unpack two main approaches that you can take to your peer-to-peer retention strategy campaign to start doing philanthropy. The first is traditional, the traditional fundraising techniques that organizations do. And I think this is vitally important. All of us are aware that peer-to-peer revenue is declining. If you haven't checked it out, one of the best resources I think that you could check out is the Peer-to-Peer Forum. I love everything that they do. They do a lot of wonderful research and analysis into the industry. And what they realized is that the top 30 nonprofits last year brought in, in 2016, brought in a total of $1.53 billion. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. It's actually been going down, though. It went down 2.8%, which is pretty significant when you get into those numbers. Now, hopefully, you folks are not experiencing that decline. But you need to anticipate the fact that people are getting a little bit burned out when it comes to general peer-to-peer events. It's the same thing. So we need to reevaluate and in some cases revolutionize the way that we engage peer-to-peer. And that's, if you frame it as philanthropy, then you're going to start doing things in a way that will make a difference immediately. So what I want to do is take some of the concepts from the Fundraiser's Guide to the Annual Fund, which is an ebook that we'll be providing to you for free after this as a gift to you. We're going to take some of those concepts from the Annual Fund and apply them to peer-to-peer. And so these are the 6 steps that you can take for traditional fundraising to apply to peer-to-peer retention. So this is from the Annual Fund book that I actually wrote after my experience working at a few nonprofits. So we're going to provide that as a gift to you to thank you for coming today. And so step number 1, we need to set the foundation. You need to review last year's campaigns and events. How did you do? You need to look at the numbers. How much did you spend? How much did you bring in? How many registrants did you have? How many peer-to-peer donors did you have? You got to look at that financial situation. How did you actually do? So use reports to understand what's feasible. You might be using something like QuickBooks. That's going to be able to give you a basic overview of profit and loss. But you might have more dedicated fundraising platforms, such as QGive. They have a lot of wonderful reports to look at the basic items of registration. You also might be able to feed that back into a detailed CRM like NeonCRM. Or you can even use the free tools like Fundraising Report Card to get a high-level overview. And once you understand where you are, then you can start to figure out where you're supposed to go. So look at what are your goals. What's your goals for the year? What's your goals for the quarter? What do you want to support? And I think tying it to your actual mission is something that if you look at your race, if you look at your walk, if you look at your peer-to-peer events and say, what is this actually going toward in our mission, then it also starts to get you into the mindset of you're moving beyond the event. You're doing philanthropy. So set goals for your retention campaign. What are you trying to target? There's statistics out there that show that it costs your organization 7 times more money to bring in a new donor than it does to retain them. So in terms of your donors, your event registrants, and your volunteers, you cannot forget about your volunteers. What are your retention rates? What do you want to make sure that you keep from a year-to-year basis? What's realistic? If you can go back a few years, the industry best practice is 3 years. We'll see that in shortly. But look at your rates and see what you think is realistic to maintain and increase, ideally. Also keep in mind other types of objectives. It shouldn't just be money. So, for instance, branding of your events. Is there consistency from event to event? So if you have a 5K here, how does that feed into maybe the more traditional gala as well? Are the colors consistent? Are you using your logo in ways that are consistent? Is the messaging consistent when it comes to talking about what is this fund for your mission? If you're not talking about your mission and you're talking more about the actual event itself, then you need to reevaluate how you're talking about your event. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Then you got to create your action plan. Now, for general donations, keep in mind that the vast majority of people donate in the end of the year, in December. So that's something that when you're planning your budget, the scope, the people involved, you got to keep in mind that the vast majority of the money coming in are probably not going to be from your actual race itself. That a lot of people prefer to give in the last few days of the year to their favorite nonprofits. And so from a retention strategy, how can you get people thinking about your events and how they weave into your overall mission, keeping these statistics in mind? Now, if you look at your budget, and the vast majority, it does come from the event. On the flip side, for more traditional fundraising and annual fund engagement, are you leaving money on the table? Because retention isn't just from the event standpoint, it's overall engagement. So maybe taking those people who you had at the event and thanking them for coming to the event in the final 3 days with a very soft call to action might be another strategy to take in mind. So you keep your timelines and your milestones set for the entire year with these industry understood statistics in mind. And you got to put all in focus. You got to bring and have a whole theme to bring all this messaging together. So it needs to work in multiple areas. We're going to talk about social media a little bit later, but we can't forget about good old print, especially if you're doing things like jerseys or bib colors or things like that. Does it work? Is there a connection being made there? The vast majority of people are going to respond to a personal appeal. So how can you make the ways that you're recruiting people to become team leaders, to come back and donate, how are you making it feel that you're making a personal connection? Tweets are not enough. Putting up a sign in your office when people walk by is not enough. You got to ask them. You got to make it about them. You got to use the word you. If you aren't using the word you in your solicitations, you got to reevaluate your copy. So make it cohesive, make it donor-centric, make it about the donor, make it about your mission and your audience. Again, fundraising report card. Industry leaders, when it comes to donor analytics, their industry recommended review is 3 years of donation and donor retention rates to set a realistic goal. If you have that information, great. If you have more than that, you might be spending extra time unnecessarily. 3 years is a good goal to aim for. If you don't have 3 years, start building up that data. Start building in processes to make sure that you have that data. And then segment your audience. Think about people who are your team captains. That, ideally, unless there's something happening on a personal level, that retention rate should be the highest of all the levels. So those people should be coming year after year. They're your champions. But then who are the people that make major donations? They might not be team captains. Don't forget, not everyone's comfortable with the responsibility of being a team captain, but they might lay out some major money. So you have to talk to those people differently. Another section of folks that you should never forget are your corporate sponsors. Corporate sponsors should have their own messaging. Call them sponsor leaders. You should be meeting with the actual decision maker of the sponsor. If they're doing a race, and the thing to keep in mind is if they're a sponsor and they get a bunch of tickets, you want the leaders of there, the C-level executives, coming to your event. This is not their company picnic. And so that situation that you want to avoid with these VIPs these corporate donors, these sponsor leaders, is that you want to avoid having people go around the day before your event saying, who wants some free tickets to come to this event? There's an after party for the race. Come watch me. We want the people to be jazzed to be there and to leading it. So personally appeal to the VIPs in that organization. And so going down there, going all the way down to the volunteers and the people who can give maybe $5, $10, make sure that they have their own specialized messaging. Know your audience. The more data that you can collect, the better you're going to be able to target. But don't do a mass appeal. Don't do a mass appeal to get people to come back to your event. Make it exciting for them. Tell them that they're going to have their friends there. Show pictures from the event last year and say, remember when you did this? And look at your friend. He's coming. She already said yes. Be able to make that personal outreach. Overall, when you're looking at different channels for year-end appeals, direct mail is still the top. So I think these statistics can definitely be applied to a fair amount of retention techniques that you can practice also for your event. Because a direct mail appeal to get somebody to come to the event is probably going to work because you've taken the effort. The reason is that people don't get mail anymore. So actually having a nice packet that's sent to them that shows big, bold, beautiful pictures of the event with a clear call to action, and then you follow up with a phone call for those captains, for those sponsor leaders, for the VIPs, that's the effort you should be making. Because then they have something that shows them this is going to work. And if you frame the message first as that direct mail piece, then with follow-up, and then definitely trying to talk to those people in person, you're going to see your retention rates go up. So definitely look into mail merge skills as well. You got to be able to follow up. Basically, no matter what, in terms of, the statistics show that for year-end campaigns, 59% of donors are going to respond if you make 1 to 3 donor touches. And I think that will definitely apply as well to overall donor retention. So taking these strategies for your kind of annual engagement and applying them to your events is going to show increase in retention rates. Because vast majority of nonprofits, regardless of it's their year-end campaign or their annual event that is kind of the walk, the race, etc., a fair amount, almost 30% of nonprofits don't even bother to reach out to their team captains and other types of donors and other types of volunteers. So don't be part of that percentage. So how are you going to follow up? How are you going to recognize these people? And how can you use a thank you event for this type of outreach too? And we got a really great peer-to-peer example for that, NuPath. So NuPath does some amazing work. They're a QGive client. Hopefully you can hear this video. Abby, tell me if you can't.
I'm not hearing it.
You're not hearing it. Okay. Well, that's fine. What I'll do is just mute it and talk about what we're seeing on the screen. Definitely go check out the video. You're going to see in the slides too. NuPath does some great stuff. So if you look at the imagery, it looks fun, right? It looks like people are having a really, really engaging time, that everybody's just really excited to be there. And this is a really good thing. If we think about the last webinar that was done for QGive by Mark Becker of Cathexis Partners, one of Neon's partners as well, he talked about the importance of thank you videos. And so NuPath does this very well, that kind of imagery, but then this is the thing that I want you to make sure that you see. Look at this. They're talking about the goals. They're talking about how they're doing. They're bringing all these people. They're going to do this wonderful shot of the entire crowd. You don't even need the sound. You don't even need it. Look at all these people jazzed. And so that's the thing that I think is really, really powerful, that they bring everybody together to show success. And so you want that energy there. You want those team captains to feel that they've paid off in the effort that they've done. But you also want to have that extend out to the volunteers, the sponsor leaders, the major donors, and even, minor donors. People who give $5 are still giving you money, and you want to be able to bring them back. So having events that thank people, either shortly after, maybe an after party, partner with a local brewery. I know Abby would love that. Big craft brewery fans at QGive, just like here at Neon. So go out to a local brewery, see who might be able to give you some beer. Get a keg for after the event. Thank your donors. Have a thank you after party. Or do it later in the year. Maybe you plan it for the end of the year because then that gets them thinking about when the weather's nicer. And then the event is coming up because then it creates that cyclical philanthropy approach. Now, that's traditional fundraising. So a lot of engagement, personal touches, that in-person interaction, those physical mailings, consistent branding, setting the stage. But we can't ignore social media. And so social media is obviously not going away anytime soon. So we want to talk about some strategies that can help buttress all the things that you're also doing in person. And so social media has 4 common pitfalls that we want to avoid. So what are the main mistakes that might be holding your organization back? Number 1, optimization. You might be not optimizing how your things load. So check the image size. Check the website URL. What does it read? Is it mobile friendly? Are you posting something on your website that's not mobile friendly? Systems like QGive and NeonCRM can optimize the web view for you, but is your website mobile friendly? If not, when people actually go to convert, they might get confused. So check whether your social media is linking over to something that's mobile optimized, because the vast majority of people are reading emails, checking social media on a phone nowadays. They're not sitting down at a computer. So you need that small screen optimization. Number 2, are you posting at peak times? So Facebook, for instance, has built-in analytics to show you when your posts are doing well. Are you paying attention to that? If you aren't, you might want to look at that. Go to your page, look up the statistics, see the basics of when people are actually looking at your content, and then post it. You can increase your reach organically without paying for ads simply by paying attention to when people actually pay attention to you. So, for instance, if you're a national focused event, it might be something that might be more effective later in the day. If you're something that's very local focused, then look at the statistics about when people are reading their email, opening their Facebook. Think about you. What's your own engagement with social media? A lot of people, they wake up in the morning, they read their email, then they go to work. They might continue reading their email at work in terms of personal stuff or looking at Twitter. But it's going to be in the morning, around lunch, and near the end of the day. And then during the week, a lot of people start thinking toward the weekend for events on Thursdays. So check out those statistics. Post a lot. So the thing is that specifically for Facebook and also Twitter now, they have a lot of things to actually filter what people see. So you can post a lot. You can post even multiple times per day, and it's not going to bother everybody necessarily, but at least try to post once a day to your Facebook page for the duration of the lead up for your event. So if you have a 4K coming up, like the example that we're going to see a little bit later on for Ulman Cancer Fund, and you want to get people excited, you should be posting at least once a day as things ramp up. And get your appeal right as the call to action at the top. So if it's for registering people or getting volunteers, make sure that it's using that little button. You could change the name of that if you're not aware. So you can make it a call to action to sign up, to donate, whatever you want, and pin that to the top. And use big, bold imagery. That cover photo is massive real estate for your actual campaign, for your event. And so encourage people, if they're a team leader, to actually share it. Say, look, this is the page that you should be sharing. Give them a little social media kit. Give them some guidance. Some systems even have that built in as templates, such as QGIF. And be connected. Be present. Listen. If somebody leaves a comment, reply. Hey, what time is the race? Reply to them as quickly as possible. Make sure you thank people. So if you thank them, they're going to want to feel that they've been valued, and make it as personal as possible. Can you actually create a special landing page like what Mark Becker was talking about last time in terms of the actual video that says thank you for donating, thank you for signing up as a team member, thank you for volunteering. Keep them in the loop. Keep following up. Show new videos. Show if you're having a very competitive focus on the actual event itself. Sometimes it gets pretty competitive out there. Amp that up. Get people talking trash. Very nice, respectful trash, but get people excited. Get people excited, because 53% of donors cite poor communication with the nonprofit as the reason that they stop supporting the organization. So if you don't follow up, if you aren't present, they're not going to be there next time. So that hurts retention, but you can easily fix that with a tweet. So let's check out Ulman Cancer Fund as a great example of this. So I love, this is actually not the Ulman Cancer Fund page. It's a dedicated page just for the event, their 4K for Cancer. So this is a Neon client. They've been using us for a few years. And notice that they have the sign up button right there. They have some analytics that say, hey, look, these people are replying within a day. I got direct links to all of this. They have when the applications for their 2018 event coming up, because they actually plan pretty long form this particular event. Videos, lots of videos here that I can watch right in here. Lots of big, bold photos. Lots of posts. Lots of posts. So this is a really, really good example. Also seeing more and more engagement of potential live streaming. So that's something to take into account to be really effective at your events as well if somebody can't make the event. And also you can record that too. You can record your live streaming as well. So Ulman Cancer Fund, nice spotlight in terms of social media. NuPath does that very well as well, and Ulman does traditional fundraising very well. So these are two great users. So the takeaways regarding social media: personalization and making donors feel special is key, and you should do that across all channels. Don't take our word for it. There's actually a lot of new tools that Facebook has released to help nonprofits, such as that button. They do have their own kind of peer-to-peer, not even peer-to-peer campaign stuff. It's kind of the pages where you can raise money on behalf of an organization. My main problem with that, for instance, is the fact that you can't get at that data very easily. So be a little wary of that. Their fees aren't also as great as it could be compared to other more dedicated platforms. So definitely work with social media, but be a little wary of relying on Facebook's built-in tools for raising money as opposed to having something that is a little bit more connected to the larger data set for retention purposes. But the future of fundraising is going to happen on social media. It's not just Facebook. You got Twitter. Instagram is your best friend when it comes to imagery. It's a beautiful, beautiful, and easy to update platform when it comes to photos. So a lot of things with video like Snapchat that are coming out. But always with social media, just only take on what you know you can maintain. So that goes back to that optimization and response rate. Don't just start an account on every single piece of social media that you can find. Just do the ones that you know that you can nail and that you can keep up with. And with some modifications, any type of traditional fundraising strategy that can absolutely work on social media too. Thanking people, reaching out to people, analyzing and segmenting donors. You can do that by social media as well with several tools. I'm going to give a special shout out to Neon Neon Friend, Action Sprout. They're a great tool when it comes to Facebook fundraising. A lot of these tips for social media came directly from them. So check it out. They got some free programs and also some really deep things to really drill down in terms of your fundraising. So if you haven't utilized Action Sprout, check it out today. So on your mark, in terms of getting ready for these types of events, in terms of the overall presentation today, I wanted to make sure that we had ample time for questions. So what I'm going to do is, maybe open it up, Abby, for any questions that we might have.
Okay. Well, I did want to ask you about resources that nonprofits can use for imagery and such if they have never done a peer-to-peer event before. I saw a lot of examples of people who had really beautiful images of past participants and parties and cool appeals that they've done for past events. But what do they do if they have never done a peer-to-peer event before and don't have those resources? Okay, so great example of that, right? Actually, not. Thank you. See this photo? Yeah, I didn't take that. So one of my favorites for just good, beautiful imagery is Unsplash. So Unsplash is public domain photos like this that you can then leverage. So you can type in things like party, you could type in race. A lot of the things that I pulled from were actually from that platform. And, just with a little bit of attribution work, in terms of the meta tags and whatnot, you're good to go. And so when it comes to using imagery, that's one of my favorites. My second favorite is Canva. If you haven't utilized Canva, Canva is awesome. And so even their free program, that's all I use for different events that I've done and different things, even at Neon. And it's like basically allowing you to design beautiful graphics very easily. So you can upload photos, you can have little icons, and there's some really, really nice tools that they have built in. And they even, for their pro program, have nonprofit pricing. So Canva is another really good tool. Yeah. We love Canva. We use it at QGIve a lot. Yeah. Neon has a web studio as well, and I've been pushing to get Canva installed as a built-in plugin. I think we're going to be doing that. So it's really cool, and it works directly with WordPress, for instance, so you can quickly either download it and upload it into something like QGIve or Neon, or it might even directly work with your WordPress website as an example. Okay, very cool. Yeah, well, we love Canva here. I know you told me about Unsplash earlier, and I know that those free resources are always a huge help to nonprofits who need a little extra help with imagery. And in the kind of gift that we're giving for the annual fund book to download, we actually have a few more free resources for that type of design work as well listed in one of the chapters. Excellent. Okay, cool. Everybody, if you're listening and you caught that little ebook that he's going to send out, that is coming to you very soon, so keep your eyes peeled if you are looking for some resources like that. I did have a question here. Live streaming video is something that's really cool. A lot of nonprofits are starting to do it. Because it is so new, there's not a lot of information about best practices surrounding how to use it, when to use it, what to feature. Do you have any insight into ways nonprofits can use kind of this new technology to their fullest advantage? With any type of, that's a great question. With any type of technology, because I'm weird in many cases. I talk about all the beauty of technology, and then I refuse to read anything on a Kindle. I need a physical book, right? So I'm kind of on both sides when it comes to that type of thing. But with the specific question here, I think the answer to that with
and with any piece of technology is do content that speaks to the core of your mission. That's what you should be doing. Don't do auxiliary stuff. So what I mean by that is somebody just finished a race. You're doing a live stream video. Can you pull them off? Maybe they're a cancer survivor, and you know that they're one of the champions of yours. Pull them off. Do a quick interview with them. Right? Boom.
Yeah.
Hey, we got Jim here. He just finished the race. How do you feel? Oh, I am exhausted, but I know that this is going to help, that type of thing. So make it and because people then feel that they're part of the actual experience, the experience that person just lived. I think video, especially with races, you use it for the beginning, you use it for the end, you use it during the beginning, but you do it in a way that is making it about the mission. It's nice to interview somebody who's doing the cups and passing out the water, but if you're not framing that in a way that these people are here because they have a story that relates to your mission, that might not be as effective. So any piece of content can be powerful if you make it about your mission.
That's a very, very interesting point. You never think about interviewing someone who's handing out the water cups, but that could be a really powerful thing. And that point ties in beautifully with the next question. One thing that is really cool about social media is that people are able to share their own stories and experiences. And I have a question here about ways to encourage participants, whether they be actually participating in the race or the walk or whatever, or volunteers or even donors, to share their insights and experiences on social media, kind of building the content that a nonprofit is doing and putting out. What are some ways to A, encourage people to do that, and then B, to publicize what they're posting?
Well, make it worth it for them. That's the biggest thing. That don't assume that people are going to provide your content for you. Sure. But when it happens, it's super powerful. So that question does get into the heart of something that I think it's almost like, how do I make a viral video? Well, you look up the internet and you Google that, you're going to get thousands of people saying how they made a viral video, but it's kind of tough to say this is viral. But the thing is that I think at the end of the day, people do that type of thing if it's authentic. So it's not just a mission, it's sharing a story. Storytelling is very powerful. It's almost to the point where I'm almost rolling my eyes at the term storytelling when it comes to nonprofit buzzwords.
Yes.
But it does hit on the inherent human emotion of wanting to feel valued. And so that's what social media is. That's what people want. They want to feel valued, whether it's them taking a picture of their dinner or telling the story of how they got mugged, right? Like, people want to share their experiences. And so when it comes to your event, the event itself, again, we want to stop doing events. We want to start doing philanthropy, right? So people in the lead up to that should be sharing their story of the connection to the mission. And I always go back to cancer stuff because it's one of the more ubiquitous examples of organizations. But you have walks for autism. You have walks for stopping bullying, right? There's a mission everybody can join in. There's walks for cats and dogs. But everybody's passionate about that. They're passionate if they're involved. So ask them why they're passionate. And you can tie that together very easily with hashtags, because both Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those use hashtags to tie conversations together. And so you can nest all those together. So when we go back to that traditional fundraising item, I think it's number 3 or 4, about branding, right? Hashtags should be considered part of that too. And another thing to keep in mind is also accessibility of your social media usage. And what I mean by that is when you're planning out your hashtag to continue the conversation and get people talking together, keep in mind that sometimes people have to use different readers. And if you capitalize your hashtag in a weird way, so let's say it's walk to end the cure and it's all lowercase, a reader is going to jumble all that together. So utilize something called camel case, and that just simply means walk is capitalized, to is capitalized, end is capitalized, cancer. So the first word in each one has a capital in it. And so that's going to make it more accessible when it comes to social media. I know that's not exactly what we're talking about right here, but I want us to be cognizant of that because especially with some organizations who are doing work with autism or work with people with disabilities, that also has to extend out to our social media as well. So keep in mind those strategies too to make it as inclusive as possible because then everybody can participate in the conversation.
That is really interesting. And I know inclusive design is something that we kind of talk about. I mean, we talk about it at QGIve because we work with a lot of different people, but the concept of inclusivity is starting to filter down to people in their everyday day-to-day lives. And there's very little information out there about it. I actually had no idea that a reader would jumble together those words. So now I need to reevaluate my own hashtag usage on the QGIve Twitter account and similar things.
And also think about your videos too. Are they captioned, closed captioned? So that's another thing. So if you're relying very heavily on video, there are actual services that you can pay basically like $1 per minute. So if you have a 5-minute video, you've created an accessible video just by running it through a service real quick. And so I'll actually, Abby, I'll email a few of these resources. There's one really solid blog that was done by the Chicago Community Trust recently that actually made me start thinking about all these things. I'll include it as a follow-up because it talks about the video, talks about camel case, and a few other items to consider.
Wonderful. And that point about the captioning on videos is really important. Everybody, if you're making a video, like Tim said, most of the people who are on Facebook or on Twitter are on their phones. And on Facebook, I believe it's the same on Twitter. Facebook will autoplay videos, but it does not autoplay the audio. So I know I am a pretty standard Facebook user, and I definitely am one of those people that I'll be scrolling through my phone, I'll maybe pause and look at a video. If it looks interesting, I'll tap it and actually listen to the audio, but 9 times out of 10, I end up reading a few frames before I decide if I want to listen to it. So captioning your videos is a really great way to boost inclusivity, to make it accessible, but also for people like me who have short attention spans and don't know if they want to watch the video at all, it's a good way to grab their attention.
That literally, and I think that's also a great point. It's not just inclusivity. It's also the people like us too that are just kind of like, I don't know if I want to watch this whole thing or not. I think that's such a great point too.
Watching a minute-long video sounds like too much of an investment. It sounds hard.
I know. So closed captions, they auto-load those, and so that can definitely help too.
For sure. I've got one more question, and this one is just for me, and I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second. We talk a lot in the nonprofit industry about peer-to-peer fundraising, and we talk a lot about donor retention, but we don't talk a lot about participant and volunteer retention, which is why this presentation that you're doing is so important. If you could get across one point to people who are watching this, maybe they skipped to the end of the video, maybe they zoned out, maybe they had to answer their emails. We're all busy in the nonprofit industry. If you wanted to tell people one thing about retaining participants and volunteers, what would you tell them?
Solid data integrity. Solid data integrity is the key to donor retention. If you do not have good data, then it doesn't matter all the beautiful videos and tweets that you've thought out and web pages. If you can't personalize that to meet somebody's needs and to speak to them personally, and you can't do that without data, it doesn't matter. And so that's why it's great, like platforms like QGive can connect to a CRM like NeonCRM. QGive is actually finishing up a direct certified integration with Neon, and so I expect that to be announced, soon. And that's really exciting because then it means that you can use best-of-breed platforms and then not have to worry about import and export. And so data integrity for multiple systems is an ultimate goal, but at the end of the day, you just want to know who somebody is and speak to them. And so it can be as something as little as, do you have their first and last name and preferred name, or what is their team name? And then it can be as deep as this person's a volunteer because their father was affected by your mission, and something like that. Like being able to take those notes, write those notes down, but then get it into your primary database of record to be able to reference back to that, because retention means that it's also retaining data as well. It's not just retaining people, it's retaining good data. And so being able to reference back to that, even if you have staff turnover, make sure you have policies and procedures for your data collection methods. And look into direct integrations like what QGive is going to have with NeonCRM.
Perfect. We love data at QGive. If any of you are familiar with some of the things we put out, we like weird data and interesting data, and the significance of that data is why we do love working with people like Tim at Neon. It's very important to nonprofits now more than ever, now that people are existing in the digital world almost as much, it seems, as they are existing in the real world.
So Abby, are there any other questions?
That was the last one.
Well, I have a question for you.
Oh dear, okay.
Where are you going to be this Thursday through Saturday?
This Thursday through Saturday, my friend, I'm so glad you asked. We are going to be in Washington, D.C. at the Nonprofit Technology Conference. I know Neon will be there. I am very much looking forward to catching up with Tim in real life and not just on the phone. If any of you are attending 17 NTC this year, please come by and see us. Tim, what booth number is Neon going to be in?
I am checking that now. I think we're 605 and 619. So we're basically, if you're going to be walking into the area on the side that has the food, you're going to have to walk by us. So have a conversation.
Oh no, we
We're
have
actually
to walk
giving
by
away
the
a free
food?
website. We're giving away. You got to walk by us from the main hall to get to see the food. If you aren't attending NTC personally, I think they do have some webinar sessions as well to check out. So N10 is an amazing resource for nonprofits. And definitely check out QGive, check out us, say hello. I'm going to be there. Abby's going to be there. And
Yeah, it's going to be a great weekend. It's going to be a lot of learning crammed into a few days. But if you can manage to come by and see us, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. And then we'll also be both at AFP in San Francisco as well.
We will.
But that's not till April 30th, folks. So check it out.
Yeah. So get excited about N10 and then start getting excited after N10 for AFP. Awesome. All right, my friend. This was a wonderful webinar. Tons of good information. A few times I was actually on mute live tweeting this and fist pumping because I was agreeing so hard with what you were saying. Everybody, if you want to see some highlights, check out QGive's Twitter. I think I threw in some corny GIFs. There was a lot of yes and fist pumping when I was tweeting them. So also keep an eye on your inbox. I'm going to send this webinar to you. Tim is going to send you some really great resources. We're going to send you some really great resources. And hopefully you will leave today and go into your next peer-to-peer event a little better equipped to retain all of the wonderful people who are supporting your work.
Awesome. Abby, I want to thank you for putting this together and look forward to continuing the conversation with everybody, and have a lovely day.
You too. We will talk soon.
Absolutely.
Bye.